Who are you looking at?
I don't know. Who am I looking at? What am I?
Off camera.
I'm looking. Okay, am I looking?
You're good. You're perfect. Yeah.
Okay, well then I'm looking at the camera.
You're actually quieter than Shell.
Am I really? Well, that's not a surprise. I mean,
I'm loud.
Yeah.
I'll have to try to look down at your reactions every once in a while because
how is that?
A little better.
Better?
I'd say so.
All right, let's see. I can actually let's see if I can do this. Oh. How's that?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. All right.
Just remind me. I have a huge wide monitor.
Oh,
it's
like yep, we're live is working. Let's see, live stream chat. Why I can't see it. Hey, what's going on, Lucky? Hey, Michelle. Good to see you guys. Got a couple early people joining in on our live studio audience.
Hello, everyone.
Life just showed up, which is always good. It's always good to see Life.
Yes, always.
I like when my life shows up every morning.
Yeah, there's worse things on earth.
Hi,
Lydia. Good afternoon.
And
give people a couple seconds to jump in. Let us know how we look. Let us know how we sound. Hopefully, all is good.
I'm going to escape out of full screen because what ends up happening is I'm looking over here for chat because I have a huge wide monitor and it's making it so that I have to look at you guys like.
Always good to have a Hellraiser in the class.
I know.
Without a doubt. All right, guys. Well, listen, it's Friday. It's 4:00. Again, a little earlier than we normally like to get to you. We like to give you guys time to get on the road, get on your commute, get yourselves home for those that are working. But we'll be doing this 4:00 session for one more week.
Yes. Next week we should be back to 5:30, whatever. Yes.
So next Friday we'll be back at 5:30.
Yes.
Okay. I'm blurry, but everything else is good. I don't know why I'm blurry. And
for those of you that don't know, I'm officially in poker school. I'm learning to deal and pitch poker and learning to deal poker. So that's where I'm at. That's why we're earlier.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to mess with it. You can hear me. You can see me. I'm showing a decent feed, but it is what it is. So I will stay 80s pixelated. It's probably not a bad look for me. And just want to take a moment to welcome everybody to another episode of the 3 View Mirror podcast. 1 hour, where 15 minutes at a time, we go back in time, revisiting the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, basically the Gen X era that we all grew up in, and bringing up three different topics that visit those days and that we can talk about in depth and discuss. But what 2 out of 3 of us don't know, and what y'all don't know, is whoever's hosting this week's episode has a secret connection that plays through all 3 of the topics. And really only they know it until the end when we can all guess it. And sometimes we guess it, sometimes we don't. And sometimes it's guessable, and sometimes it's really not. And it's generally really not guessable, more so with one of us than the other. And today our host is Shell. So I wish you all luck and luck to ourselves. My name is John Katrides, better known as Gen X Jono across the social media platforms that I grace you all upon. And I'm joined with 2 of my newest, closest friends from the past year. Guys, introduce yourselves.
I'm Rochelle O'Black, and I saw some people saying about going to school for poker and stuff. Yes, I am a social media personality, and if you don't know me, go follow me. I'm better known as Gen X Shell, but I am also a dealer.
And I'm Chris Clues, better known as Chris Clues. I am actually a keynote speaker and author that writes and talks about the lessons that we can learn for life and work from 80s pop culture.
And this, as we've said, is the 3 View Mirror podcast. All right, Shell, you have the duty today, so I'll let you take it from here.
Yes, I have 3 very interesting topics today. I do think that it is an accomplishable mystery connection, but I will say that you might get a little tripped up, maybe. Okay, so without further ado, our 3 topics they're very good ones. I'm really excited to talk about these. They are Terminator, the movie, Aliens, the movie, and the Titanic wreckage.
Ooh.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Which is a little outside of your 70s, 80s, 90s. I get it, but
Well, when did the Titanic sink? Was it like the 1480s?
No, I mean, you know what I'm saying.
What was it, like the 18? Was it the early 1900s, 1920s,
12?
18?
1912.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Wow, I like all 3 of the topics a lot.
Yes.
My mind is spinning.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait to talk. So Terminator. We'll start with Terminator, and talk about Terminator. What do you have to say? In fact, it's up there on my list of like one of the greatest movies, at the time. That it's still on my list.
I'll start. Terminator, definitely one of my favorite movies, and almost never in the history of time has it been more applicable, apropos, timely than it is today, because we're watching basically the plot of Terminator play out in real time all around us. No, Schwarzenegger's not here looking for Sarah Connor, and guys, you are in for a treat. If we can get Shell to do her Arnold Schwarzenegger impression talking about Sarah Connor, we've heard it many times on the show. I'm sure she'll do it. But yeah, we were raised to fear AI and think, okay, it's never going to happen. It's happening. Mm-hmm. We're really seeing the birth of Skynet right now in real time, almost the way they described it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love Terminator. It was one of my favorite movies growing up as a kid. It had everything that I loved about 80s movies. And my stepbrother and I still to this day, we recite the line when he's in the gun shop and he's like, Uzi 9mm laser sighting. And the guy says, just what you see here, guy. I don't know why that line stuck with us, but with all the great lines that are in that movie. And if there's a documentary on the rise of Schwarzenegger and Stallone where they talk about how he got into Terminator, and it's pretty awesome.
Oh, I never saw that one.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah, it's called like the 80s. I want to say like the rise of the action hero, something like that. But it focuses mainly on those two, and because they both have very similar arcs in terms of their story. Yeah, really, love the Terminator.
So Hellraiser brings up a really good point. Speaking about more T2, I guess, right? It was Patrick that was in T2?
Yeah.
Talking about how he had learned his inline running and the way that he ran in order to catch up. That he really went nuts learning that. And I think the entire Terminator series was just a lesson in people really taking their jobs seriously. Mm-hmm. When you look at, her name escapes me right now, the actress that played Sarah Connor.
Linda Hamilton.
Yeah. Her transformation from the I need to be protected, please save me woman in Terminator to seeing her in T2, like that first image when it pans to her and she's like doing like pull-ups, mm-hmm. which I'm still not able to do more than 1 or 2 at that. I mean, pull-ups are tough. They're no joke. Yeah. And she's crushing it. Arnold Schwarzenegger and how he adapted from his character in T1 to T2. Everybody took it really, really seriously and sold it hard for an action movie, which probably didn't necessitate them working that hard to sell it because it's just supposed to be a good time. Mm-hmm. They crushed it.
Yeah, you mentioned AI, John, or did you mention it, Shell, about AI? It's funny that we're in 2024 and it's become the thing that everybody's talking about. And they've been talking about it for, 10 years or so, but it's really just matured into exactly what they thought it was going to be. Meanwhile, back in the early 80s, not only did we have Terminator, but we also had War Games, which was very much about AI and, the Joshua in the computer taking over the the nuclear missiles, I guess it was the Department of Defense at the time. So
Hell from 2001.
Yeah. So I mean, it's interesting that it took all this time to actually get there, but these directors and these creative minds were already really thinking about it and way far ahead.
Yeah, they were. I mean, the first time I think I ever saw when the way the Terminator 2 actually switched around the roles, like you said, John, that was one of the most amazing things to me. And then when, the thumbs up, when he got destroyed at the end, like that was like the thumb going down into that molten vat of stuff.
And do you know who do you remember the scene where I guess he maybe just he was just walking down the street and needed clothes and he goes up to those guys. Do you know who one of those guys was?
Who?
No.
Bill Paxton
was one of the thugs. Like they called him the two thugs in the credits. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I missed that. That's a good piece of trivia. I did not realize
that is.
I mean, Hellraiser also says that anyone who uses Grammarly or GPS uses AI. It's actually integrated itself so much into everything. If you're the algorithms for the social media we use, if you were alerted to the fact that this podcast is live right now, if you're seeing things, all that's AI. Customer service, if you're trying to get someone to help you nowadays, is being driven towards AI, automated customer service. It's not good at it, but it's less expensive. It's all going in that direction. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, if you ever need to get through to their customer service departments, those of us that are creators at one time or another have needed to, there's nobody there anymore. It is all AI driven. And the very little piece of human help that they have has no control over the algorithm. They'll literally tell you, well, our technology has detected this. They've detected that it's unoriginal content. It's directed that it goes against our community standards. And I'm like, well, can you look at it? It's literally me talking. It's completely original. No, I see it, but the system has determined that it's not original.
Yeah.
And it has you screaming at yourself, like, what world am I living in? You're use your eyes, but no, it doesn't matter. AI is taken over.
I mean, and this is a long way from Pong. I mean, that was, I mean, Pong was still like your home when Terminator came out. What was it? 84, I think.
You're running the show.
Pong was before that.
I know. I should have looked that up. 84.
Pong was Pong.
No, Pong would have been.
Pong was before. I'm talking about Terminator. I think Terminator came out in 84.
84, yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of homes may have still had like an Atari, a ColecoVision. Perhaps if you were a little behind, you may have still had a Pong sitting around the house. I mean, this is the kind of technology that we had, and then we're watching this futuristic thing come out from the future, and AI taking over, especially in T2. And it's amazing to me that and I know T2 was many years later, when technology was making. Pong was 77, yes, but 77 and 84 were not that long apart, is what I'm trying to make the point of.
And that's when people, so we'll get baby boomers in the comments of some of the videos that I make. I'll get older and they're like, us too. Oh, it was us too. And I don't mind that they relate. That's great. I'm glad you relate. But most of the things that I talk about in terms of what made our generation different was we sat on the cusp of it. I'm not saying that the boomers weren't there when technology took off as well. I'm not saying that some younger millennials didn't experience some of it, but we literally were children that were raised from no tech into tech, and it happened like that. Mm-hmm. I remember being in 5th grade and having a Trash 80 brought, Radio Shack Tandy TRS 80 brought into our room, and learning how to code in BASIC. And I was like, and I went home and I remember telling my parents, and their vision of a computer was an entire room filled. That's what computers looked like. They took up an entire room. And when I came home and told my parents they brought in 3 computers into our classroom for us to work on, they were like, how they fit 3 computers into your room? Today, Melinda's topics are brought to us by Shell.
Me.
And they are, just as a reminder to everybody, it's Terminator, which we're talking about now, Aliens, and Titanic Wreckage, for those of you that just came in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I'm always fascinated looking back at movies like Terminator, and earlier when we were talking about how far ahead they're looking. It's quite remarkable that they can actually think about that, 20 years ahead of time, what might be happening. And some of them end up being fairly accurate. Some of their timelines are sometimes a little bit off, and some of them just completely miss. But Terminator, if you've seen those, what is it? Is it Boston Dynamics? Some of those robot videos that they have, Boston Dynamics is making these. I mean, it's the Terminator.
Mm-hmm.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's awesome, but it's pretty scary.
Yeah.
So, an Ex Machina, was that the one that was like, kind of like a modern day Terminator almost? Yeah.
Yeah.
We were raised on watching technology being forecast to us. I mean, I remember watching the Star Trek reruns and watching what they did with tricorders and communicators. And it's like, oh, that's so cool. Well, it's right here.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe more, watching the only thing that holodecks, which we're like, well, that'll never, ever happen. And now we're entering into worlds where VR is becoming more and more increasingly incredible. But for the teleportation, we're seeing so much of it work. And to Chris's point, Terminator, James Cameron's vision of what the near future would look like was scarily spot on.
Mm-hmm. It was.
And it was one of those movies where, unlike the second one we're going to talk about, even the first movie where Arnold was the bad guy, I wasn't rooting for him to get Sarah Connor necessarily, but he was the bad guy you loved to hate. I mean, it was still, you thought he was cool. Does that make any sense? You didn't really hate him.
It wasn't a violent movie. Like, he wasn't a violent, hateful Terminator. Like, he killed people, but it wasn't a violent movie, as if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it did have the body count of Commando. But it was still, for the time, though. I mean, I guess maybe it was a different kind of violence, right? At that time, the violence was more with the cop movies and the mafia movies, and of course the slasher films. Yeah. This was like a new, I don't want to say a new kind of violence, but it was certainly an upgrade from Star Wars when it comes to science fiction. So, well,
and Chris, you're one that always brings up the fact that there was a period of time when movies took this leap because technology allowed them to, and yet it was still gritty. It wasn't so CGI that it seemed impractical, unrealistic. It didn't take us out of it, and yet it was leaps and bounds better than what we'd seen 10 years earlier. This was like the golden era of special effects. It took a lot of work. They didn't do them necessarily on a computer all the way through, but it was this hybrid where some computers, some makeup, it was green screen. They just used everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and modeling, they did a lot of for me, it's just so much better to watch movies when they use real special effects, and it looks like it's trending back, which is really awesome. But if you go back and you watch the original Terminator, you see it. To John's point, it's super gritty, and that gives it a much more real feel to me. I appreciate these worlds they create with the CGI, but I'll take the gritty kind of cinematography on location and the real kind of hands-on special effects over the polished stuff any day of the week.
I love to see that some of the old school stuff like that. I think when you use the word gritty, sometimes when you watch a movie, it's the CGI is so like, it's almost ridiculous. You're like, yeah, that's CGI. Whereas when you watch something like the Terminator, you're looking at it like, wow, that could be like under his skin, like, like his face and the red eye and whatever. And you feel like that could be there, and it's not CGI. So it seems real.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder too if it helps the actors because they're seeing this. It's on them. It's modeling. It's clay. It's makeup. Whereas a lot of the CGI stuff, they just tell them, okay, look over here. It's going to be here. They drop something from a string and a ball, and they're like, that's where I need you to look and pretend. Which is great if they're good actors, but it's got to be harder to do that way. And then the second thought I had, I'm like, okay, I didn't want to forget the one. So I
boy.
First, and now I forgot the second one.
Oh, no. Well, while you're thinking, I saw Kevin mentioned his first computer was a Commodore 64. which was mine as well. I actually I saved up money by, if you see the skateboard deck on my wall there, building skateboards at a surf shop, and I think they paid me like $8 or $10 per board, and then I would repair the ones that came in. Saved up enough money to get my Commodore 64, so I appreciate that as well. And we all felt like we had this amazing technology, and looking back, it's kind of hilarious. But at the time, it actually was, and that was, I think, 84 for me as well. So it was a pretty interesting year for AI, computers, all kinds of stuff.
I had a Commodore.
On CGI because I just remembered.
Okay.
And,
Right.
and I think we see it in Aliens too, which is our second topic. It very much still used this hybrid of real special effects and maybe a little bit of computer generated stuff. But it's kind of the difference between CD quality music and our old albums, our old LPs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The completely digitally clear, like, it's amazing. It's great. It's incredible. And yet it feels different than putting a record on and listening to what to me seems more like 3-dimensional sound, because you hear the little imperfections. Not saying one is necessarily better than the other, but that's kind of how I equate the difference of CGI versus traditional effects. That's how I see it.
And I was going to tell you, John, when you were trying to think of your second thing there, I feel a little bit today like I'm like I like that whole like drop a ball, hey, look over here, because I'm trying to look at the camera so that everybody feels like I'm looking at the thing. And then when I look down at the two of you and I look over and then I look over at the comments, I look like I'm looking everywhere. So anybody else, if you see my eyes wandering, I am focused and paying attention. I just, yeah, my eyes are going everywhere because I like to look at faces when I talk. But
you have wandering eyes.
Yeah, I rarely look directly at the camera when I'm speaking. So unfortunately, a lot of us, when I look down at you guys, I'm doing this.
Yeah. So anyway, final thoughts on Terminator. I think we're at about 15 minutes, and final thoughts on Terminator, the movie.
One of my favorites. I love it. I think it launched, although sci-fi has been around forever, it feels like it launched an entirely new genre of sci-fi. Somebody mentioned Predator earlier in the comments, and there was, I feel like Terminator just kind of spawned this new genre of sci-fi, and pretty awesome. Love it. One of my favorites.
Robots.
Well, and the other thing I was going to say, sorry, I got a message. Just finally, as we go into Aliens, I will say, Michael Biehn was like the nice guy in both of these movies, right? Both in Terminator and in Aliens, if I'm remembering right. And just played this. He could be the same character in both movies, almost same temperament, same, his relationship with both women protagonists in both movies was kind of the same, where he's like, I'm here to help. I'm here to do it, but didn't overpower them in their roles in any way. And just was like the quintessential good guy in the movie.
The soft, tough guy. The one, literally the one that makes every woman swoon is the fact that he's going to protect me in the robot apocalypse, but he's also going to kiss me goodnight. You know what I mean? Like he's going to be sweet and tender like that. Yeah, he was both of those parts in those movies. I agree. So speaking, okay, so moving forward.
So that doesn't help me, but at least that's a mini
connection.
Mini connection. He was
mini connection. So moving on then to Aliens. I want to introduce Aliens as I have like my two most favorite movies that I think I will always love I could watch them over and over and over and know every single word. One is Amadeus, and the other is Aliens. The second, I could watch this movie. I know it line by line, word for word. It is, for me, every time, or Dirty Dancing, which Chris, we're not going to talk about. Chris has never seen Dirty Dancing. I know, just comment in the comments right now because Chris has never seen it. But Aliens was an amazing movie to me. And so I want to hear your thoughts on it as far as the film itself.
I'll go. So, I mean, it's one of those movies just kind of, I think it took what is kind of unknown and terrifying to a lot of people, which is outer space, and made it more terrifying.
Yeah.
There wasn't like a lot of the movies before it where they were exploring space, but there was this kind of cool thing about exploring space, or, and with Star Wars, there were these kind of good and evil fights that were happening on planets with people. This was just this terrifying creature that was just annihilating people. And I think it's brilliant because it takes a place that's very unknown, that's a little bit scary to people. We look at the universe and we think, what does it all mean and how big is it? And then they're stuck on this ship with this killer alien, this monster. That, by the way, again, going back to the real special effects, I don't think it's not the same when you computer generate that. I don't think it is. And I don't think you get the same reaction out of actors and actresses when they actually see this thing in front of them versus they're trying to pretend to see it. It's different.
Yeah.
It feels different.
Yeah. I think one of the things I loved a lot about Aliens was Alien, the first one, 77, I think that was.
Really?
I think, yes, the first, or 78, 79. Somebody fact check me on that one.
The original Alien was back in the 70s?
79. Yeah. I think it was 79.
God, yeah. I never would have guessed that.
Yeah, yeah. And that movie there was such a slow burn. You barely got to see the alien. You saw a close-up of the inner mouth coming out. You saw the tail going up to grab, and that was all basically puppeteering. And, right. It was a slow burn. And then when you got to the movie Aliens, and if you loved Alien, when you got to Aliens, it was like this starvation to see what this alien really, really looked like and how it behaved. And that movie like granted you that in this whole thing. It had a storyline. It wasn't just about aliens coming over, taking over, killing everybody, although it was, but there was more of a storyline to it. And you really got to feed your inner, what was that alien like? And for me, that was one of the most amazing parts of it. The whole nest and game over, man. Game over.
I say that every time. The thing that I love best about Aliens is that I was in the movie.
Yeah.
I get sick to death in a way of these larger than life characters that no matter what comes at them, they're like, I got this. Mm-hmm. Just once in a while, it was nice to see the Bill Paxton where you get representation where the guy's like, no, fuck that. We don't got this. There's no way in hell we got this. This thing drips acid from its mouth, has more teeth than Jaws. No, we don't have this. We're done. It's game over. We're going to die. I'll be sucking my thumb in the fetal position over there if you need me, because I'm not going to be good to anyone. If I was in this movie, that would be me.
See, and my other favorite line from the movie, I think, is when they say, all right, collect, they're on the thing, collect magazines. It might have been Michael Biehn that said it, collect magazines from everybody. And the one guy says, well, what are we supposed to use, man? Horse language? That was another one of my favorite lines, like, how are we supposed to kill the aliens? What are we supposed to do?
I think my favorite was, when they're, and again, I'm going to get the specifics wrong, but they're having to make a decision on, I think, whether they were going to just like blow up the colony to try to destroy the aliens. And they're all discussing it, and they're all basically saying the same thing. We can't do it. There's too much money invested there, and this is going to be, we're going to get in trouble, blah blah. And Sigourney Weaver, Ellen Ripley stands up and says, "They can bill me," because she knows it's the right thing to do. And there's a great leadership lesson in there about the buck stops with you, leaders, and you have to take responsibility, accountability. The slings and arrows are going to come at you. And she did exactly that. While everybody else was concerned about whoever was going to say, that's too much money, she said, they can bill me. Mm-hmm. And stood up. And that's what stood out to me in the movie, that leadership, that 60 seconds of true leadership there.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing I love is the first movie, Shell, you mentioned how you barely see the alien. Yeah. In the first movie, Paul Reiser was the bad guy in the first movie. It wasn't really the alien. The alien was doing what it was doing on the piece of rock that it owned. It was its place. We invaded.
Yes.
Paul Reiser was the bad guy there.
Yes, he was.
So, I like the transition that Aliens actually then switched over, and now they're the thing that's bad in the movie.
Well, how about that? That's like a connection too, isn't it? Because Terminator had that switch over where the good guy becomes the bad, or the bad guy becomes the good guy. Yeah. And so, the alien was the good guy for that moment, who was, for all intents and purposes, killing off the bad guy.
Yeah, mind its own business. We came to hit and tried to do nasty things to it.
Yeah.
The other thing that Aliens got me on was rarely do I remember seeing a movie that did such a good job with building suspense and bringing it up and bringing it down and bringing it up. Like when they get off and they're like, they take off and you don't know that the alien's on that ship when there's so many times when you think, okay, they're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the clock should tell me they're not. There's way too much time left in this movie for them to be okay.
Yeah.
And yet, especially younger as I was then, you think, okay, they're going to be fine. Here comes the helicopter thing, the ship that's going to take them to safety, and then it crashes. You know, because it was on board the ship. And then the little girl's just like, okay, well, we better go inside now. It's going to get dark.
With her and George.
And they come out mostly when it's dark. Mostly.
Yeah. You know, it's in one of the Carolinas, the last I had heard of it. She never went on to act again. And she is a teacher, actually.
Oh, wow.
Which is
yeah,
another
right.
tiny little connection, me having been a former teacher. She is a teacher in there, and she likes to keep that mostly to herself. Mostly.
She was cute.
Yeah.
She played that part perfectly.
She did.
It's so funny because the kid who played Wyatt in Weird Science also didn't do any acting after that, I don't believe. And he's a professor at a university. And every so often he'll show up for something about Weird Science, but that he left for teaching as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan again of Aliens. Also, I would say I was late to sci-fi, except for the Terminator, which I just loved, and I think it was more of a Schwarzenegger thing for me because I'd seen him as a kid, like 10-year-old kid, and I probably shouldn't have been watching Conan the Barbarian, but I watched it anyway. Yeah. And so I think I was a little bit late to sci-fi, but I so appreciate that genre now. They're difficult stories to tell, you know, because they involve a lot of creating out of nothing, out of the unknown, things that we really don't know, and what somebody's interpretation of it might be, versus telling a dramatic story that likely has some connection to the person who created it somewhere, somehow. There's a connection to whether it's one individual or all of them. So there's some real tangible knowledge. Sci-fi is just, hey, what do I want this to be and look like? I think that's tough to do and do well.
And I think I mentioned before multiple times that horror is one of my favorite genres of reading. It's one of my favorite genres of movies and everything. But specifically, post-apocalyptic or space horror, if those as subgenres, are two of my favorite subgenres of horror. Anything's, you know, zombie apocalypse or post-apocalyptic of anything, and space. I don't know. Maybe that's why the movie, or maybe that kicked off my love of those things. I don't know.
Best Terminator movie? 1,
T2.
2, 3.
T2.
Best Alien movie?
One for me.
Aliens.
Really? For me, definitely T2. Just for me.
Yeah. And Aliens.
And I was going to say that's a mini connection because Aliens, which was the second in that series, also my favorite. I will say the third pissed me off. I in my mind, the third Alien movie never happened because they invalidate every single thing that happened in the movie that I loved in the opening scene of the third. The capsule malfunctioned, so everything they went through to save Michael Biehn and save the little girl for nothing.
Yeah.
Because on the way home, they decided to write in that their capsule malfunctioned and now they're dead. Yeah. That just pissed me off. I'm like, what kind of garbage writing is that? Why?
It was so that the whole prison thing was also so. The whole movie had one note of color, and it was brown. And I didn't enjoy watching this brown movie. Like everything in it was brown, orange, or some shade of it.
No, I horrible. Yeah, I agree. And you're right. As I think back, that's all I can think of is that it was just dirty color scheme.
Yeah. And, you know, it's timely here, too, to talk about Aliens because they just came out. You know, they had the Alien Covenant and the Alien. Now they had the Alien Romulus, which is actually coming out. It was in the theaters and it's coming out, I think, to DVD home rental in the next week or so, a couple days, something like that. And I'm looking forward to seeing it. I wanted to see it at the theaters. I just didn't have the time. So I'm kind of looking forward to it because I've seen all the movies in the genre, including the Alien versus Predators and all of those, movies like that. But I'm excited to see it. I don't know if anybody else here has seen it.
For me, it was the Aliens, but then there's also these movies like Prometheus that are part of the Aliens universe. And I loved Prometheus, and I know a lot of people knocked it, but I thought it was like a super cool, super smart sci-fi movie, and just very, very, I've watched it several times and I don't get bored of it.
I didn't love it I wanted more of that Aliens feel to it. I didn't love it for that reason, and it got in a little deep. Needless to say, I've seen it multiple times because I do still love that whole storyline. I just think that they got a little too explainy about the origins.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's just different.
Yeah.
Connecting your last two topics, Aliens and then Titanic, the movie more so than the wreckage, although the entire idea of it, both of those things did a really, really good job of placing me in the movie.
Yeah.
Whether it was, and I don't mean just Bill Paxton, but I mean, I remember actually thinking, imagining, having discussions like what it would be like if I actually was in Aliens. Like I could feel it. They did a really good job of, I was afraid sitting comfortably in my theater chair because they sucked me into the movie. Titanic, the same way. I'm like, what would I do? When they were telling me I can't go this way or can't go that way or I can't get on that boat that's going down half empty. What would I do if I somehow found myself in that moment? Both movies did a really, really, really good job of that.
Yeah. Wait, and just to pause here for a second, I don't know if anybody can hear it. Remember how last week I said I had a gizmo? Can you hear him snoring?
Yeah.
That's my gizmo snoring.
There's a line for you, Shell.
What did it say?
Hey, Vasquez, have you ever mistaken for a man? And then Hudson answers, no, have you?
No, have you? Yeah, shouts it. Yep. Loved her. Loved her.
Line, Wirehead.
Yes.
So
I can't remember what it was called, but I remember seeing a horror flick when I was 4 or 5 where someone had an actual pumpkin for their head and got crushed. Wasn't that Pumpkinhead?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Pumpkinhead was the killer, though, or he was the monster. Yeah.
Well,
and in Monkey King Medals, I was going to, when I mentioned that it did a good job of bringing me into the movie, Jurassic Park also did that.
Yes.
I remember literally thinking to myself, where would I hide? Where would I go? How would I survive? Totally agree, Monkey King Medals. Another movie that is a great, and I love movies that do that. I love feeling a part of it when they can pull me in like that and make me feel scared and anxious and all of that. That's what I love about the genre.
Did you do the same thing? Like figure
I
out
knew
how
it.
to survive when you were watching Beaches?
Did you ever know?
As soon as I said movies that make you feel something, I'm like, here comes the Beaches stuff.
I just thought you might have been trying to figure out how to survive, when you were watching Beaches.
She had a debilitating heart virus and died, leaving behind a 6-year-old little girl. So yeah, most of us feel something when we watch movies like that, especially when being melodically pleasured by Bette Midler in her
What the hell was that?
Melodically pleasured. Wow.
Wow.
Didn't know it went that deep.
The leap. No wonder you love Beaches so much.
And before we move on, Lance Henriksen, Wirehead brings him up. The scene, how many kids' hands suffered because of that scene? I remember sitting at a cafeteria table with my friends, whether it was a knife or a pen or a pencil, constantly hand on and just seeing who can go back and forth, cutting myself to ribbons so many times.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Lance Henriksen. He had a TV show as well. He was tracking serial killers. If anybody can remember what that was, just put it in the comments, please, because I can't remember, and I loved it. It was on for a few seasons. It was really smart, but it was maybe a little ahead of its time.
Googling melodically pleasured.
Be careful with what comes up. Literally. That was a pun I didn't intend.
Anyway, on that note, on things coming up, what any final thoughts? Have we been 15 minutes on aliens?
Yeah,
okay.
So.
Love it. And in fact, I'm encouraged to even go watch it again.
Yeah, me too. I will say I just got back from Disney this summer and I was crushed that the Great Movie Ride is gone, because that was my favorite part of the ride, was seeing the alien come down from the ceiling. That ride is gone forever, and that moment is now gone forever.
I never rode it, never heard of it, never seen it.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes. So, okay. So we've talked about Terminator. For those of you coming in, we talked about Terminator. We talked about Aliens, the second in the series. And now we are going to talk about the wreckage of the Titanic. And I'm not talking about the Titanic movie. I'm talking about the wreckage of the Titanic. And for me, it was a fascinating thing. I mean, I was enraptured by that story because there was talk of they were going to raise the Titanic. Yeah. I think there was even a movie on something like that where they made that. And then I was even fascinated. This was it last year or the year before, when the Titan had imploded on its way down to the Titanic. I was fascinated by that story just because the Titanic just holds this little thing in all of our hearts. And I think it was only many years ago that the last person who would have been alive for the Titanic had died. Maybe 20 years ago, something like that. They were 90 years old, or I don't know what it was. I lost track of time there, but so the wreckage of the Titanic.
I mean, it's fresh in my mind just because of that submersible that went down, and
Titan.
Ill prepared.
Yeah. Well, and a tiny little fun fact about that Titan. Do you know that the wife of
fact of the
fun? what did I say?
No,
I don't know. I didn't think there'd be many fun facts about.
Fun fact. Okay. Word choice.
Yeah, maybe something interesting about
an interesting fact about the Titan submersible was the guy's wife. I can't think of his name right now. The whole head of it that went down with the ship. His wife is actually a grandchild of someone who was on the actual Titanic. Wow. That was a real thing. Great, maybe a grandchild, great grandchild of someone that actually sailed on the Titanic.
So. Everyone was talking about the Titan, and before, what kind of an idiot would go down there? Listen, if offered the opportunity to go and see the wreckage of the Titanic safely, I don't know that I would say no. I think it's an amazing opportunity. But that being said, the minute I got in this thing and saw he was driving it with a GameCube controller, I'd be out.
Sorry, I'm good.
I'm I'm sorry. Is that a GameCube controller? Yes, this is how we operate this. Yeah, no, not so much. I'm out. Yeah. That and the fact that the people that have gone down have sent up, have uploaded lots of video. So I almost don't even need to go. I'll just watch the video safely.
I'll just keep safely over here. There's something terrifying. I think all three of these topics each have their own little terrifying aspect about them. If I could go with Terminator, the AI as being a terrifying, and robots in the future being terrifying. And then in Aliens, it's space as being terrifying. And then when you talk about the wreckage of the Titanic, you're talking about something almost more foreign than space, which is the bottom of the freaking ocean, which we know less about than we know about space. And it's amazing to me that the terror that all three of these things, which is not the connection, by the way, but all three of these things can induce terror. And, so that's.
And beyond that, but I think you came up with a really good point that they all exist in this sort of void. Terminator plays within the void of time. They're coming in and out of it, and you can see it. Aliens exist within the void of space, and then Titanic, the wreckage, exists within the void of the sea. Yeah. I mean, pressure crushing amounts of sea above. I mean, it's so down. They all are in like this. I don't know how to put it any better than that. They all exist within a different type of void.
Nice. I like that.
By the way, White just described exactly what I would say about being in that submersible. I think he or she said it perfectly. Said, no way would I want to be locked inside with no way of escaping. F that. Like, it's a few comments up.
Yeah,
I see it. Yeah.
I mean, and listen, to be fair, I won't go on a cruise because I don't like not being able to get off something when I'm ready to get off. I hate flying for the same reason.
Yeah.
But, if it was like Robert says, I would only want to see the wreckage Titanic if it was in a submarine like the one on SeaQuest DSV. I mean, okay, it's going to have to be like that safe. But it's captivating. It's these were some of the richest people of the time, and they traveled with all their stuff. The amounts of things why would you take paintings? A lot of them were moving. All their stuff was with them. The amount of incredible stuff that's down there, and I don't know how much pirating has gone on. I don't know how many people have been able to actually get down there and bring some of this stuff up. I know there's been stuff brought up. I know some of it's in museums. I don't know if anybody's been able to take it and pilfer it for their own, their own use.
I'm sure.
But it's a graveyard down there. It's a museum down there. It's a historical thing. It's amazing. And the irony of the world's first unsinkable ship sinking on its maiden voyage. I don't know how you get more Alanis Morissette ironic than that.
Yeah.
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 I'm glad you brought up the Titanic wreckage today because I've been hooked on, and I didn't have Stars, but I knew the show was on there. Now it's on Netflix, Black Sails, which has 4 seasons. It was like 2014 to 17 or 18. It's an awesome show about pirates. It's like Sopranos or Game of Thrones with pirates.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to watch that. Thank you.
And it's awesome.
Okay.
The reason I bring that up is because so many of the ships wrecked. And we think about, like John's point about the void of the ocean and space, but really the ocean, what we don't know about it, and how many ships are at the bottom of that ocean because people who are just adventurous, a little bit insane, curious, whatever you want to call them, would hop in these wooden ships and try to go across the earth, the earth and the oceans in 700, 800 years ago. And how much wreckage is below there just beyond the Titanic. But the fact that we're so captivated and captured by this one wreck compared to all the wrecks that are out there, that's really what fascinates me. Why? And the Lufthansa. Yeah, the Lufthansa is actually I played
Lusitania.
Oh, Lusitania. The Lufthansa was one as well, right? Or was it called Lusitania?
Was that World War I? Lufthansa is an airline.
No, the
airline named after the ship.
Well, that was actually
the Bermuda Triangle, maybe.
It's a conspiracy theory that the Titanic never sank, that its sister ship had sank because the White Star Line. There's a lot of conspiracy theories that are out there about the Titanic, and that they had hurried up and changed that the Titanic was actually the Lusitania that had sank. And there's one out there.
It's on an island somewhere with Elvis and Tupac.
Robert says the sister ships were the Olympic and the Britannic. Lusitania was the ship that was close by that they tried to signal.
Yes, Olympic. The Olympic was the one. That's it. They're exactly right.
Lusitania was nearby, could have gotten there. And you look at irony and just the fact that if I would have had a very I give it to the men of the time. Okay, they heard women and children first. I'm fine with women and children first. I really, truly am. May not be a popular thing to say that women should board before men today, but I still feel that women and children should have been first. I don't think I would have stood by and watched a ship, a rescue boat go down half empty. My ass would have been on that no matter what. I don't know if I would have done what the one guy did and dressed up as a woman to get on, but I don't know. My life is at stake. I'm watching my wife and my daughters get on. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I let my wife and daughters get on a boat that's half empty, mind you, and not get on it as well. I don't know if that makes them brave or stupid.
Well, and you know that the whole like, and you were talking about, because we're talking about the wreckage of the Titanic, but when you think about Titanic the movie and that whole half boat thing, and there weren't enough on the decks, and that was not aesthetically pleasing. You know, they made very sure that they made that movie look exactly the same. And you talk about bringing yourself into the movie. I know at the very end scene when that ship was going, like it's going to pause there for a second and it's going to get drugged down, and it made the whole wreckage of the Titanic come alive. It was I loved seeing it in theaters. It was, you know, this is a fun fact. It was the very first movie that I had seen. Remember last week I talked about the first movie I saw in theaters was Gremlins. Titanic was the very first movie I saw by myself in the theaters. I was post-divorce, and it was the very first movie I'd seen, so it stuck with me in that way too. But holding your breath as they're about to go, like I'm holding my breath the same way being brought into that. Yeah,
I've done it during that scene.
Yeah.
I've literally held my breath to see, could I hold it the entire time as it plays out in the movie? Because I'm stupid.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to see if I could do it. And it wasn't easy. And it certainly would have been a lot harder in the ice cold water.
Yeah.
I can't stop thinking when I think of the wreckage of the Titanic. And again, it's tough to talk about the Titanic without talking about the movie.
Because
some loved it, some hated it. You know, people have pretty strong feelings about it one way or the other. That bitch could have moved over. Jack could have fit on the door. I will say that until I'm dead in the ground. That said, the scene that sticks with me is not her telling Jack she's never going to let him go before she pries his cold, dead ice fingers off and lets him go. Is the scene where the husband and wife, they're older, they're like in their 60s or 70s, and they're in the bed together, just holding each other as the water's starting to come up. The mother reciting nursery rhymes or singing to her children as she has them in bed. That wreckage, though, people went down and exist down there. And it's just, you can't think of the wreckage as just metal and wood and stuff. There's people that went down, and I can't talk about putting you in the movie. I can't help but wonder what those final moments were like for those people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Terrifying. Yeah,
and I think that's what the draw of the Titanic. That's why the Titanic still holds us, you know, 120 plus years later. We're still drawn to that whole thing, and that's why you have deep sea explorers who just still want to go down and see it. And like John said, you would go down. Me, I'd be like, hail to the no, no, not getting in nothing. That I don't care how thick that little window is or whatever. I ain't going down. No.
And I mean, the most I'm going to do with something like that was a 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea ride at Disney, which is gone now. That's about as far as I'm going when it comes to some submersible in the ocean.
I had mentioned same sensation you got at the end of The Perfect Storm. That's another one.
Oh yeah,
Mark Wahlberg and Clooney. That was awesome. Good point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was gonna. So Vista Light mentioned. I got my name screwed up, but it was the Lusitania that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah,
was also ironically I shouldn't say ironically, but oddly was kind of kicked off a little bit of World War I because it was sunk by a U-boat, German U-boat, as Vista Light said. And I was trying to get to that point because I've been to that spot in Ireland, at least off the coast, where it's like whatever 19 miles off this point is where the Lusitania was sunk by a German U-boat. And essentially, I mean, there's a lot of things that started World War I, but that was certainly one of them that drew people in.
Mm-hmm. There's so many facts around all of this. There's so many little things. We could probably go on and on talking about this, and we're all very knowledgeable of it. It's amazing to me how much we actually know about something that was, you know, just captivated us.
Well, I mean, it permeates pop culture, which is what we all talk about. You know, you mentioned space and how you like science fiction and Star Wars. I grew up watching Star Trek. There's an episode of Star Trek Voyager where they need to implement some safeguards in the ship, and they structured the shields much like the wall setup in the Titanic to prevent the water to prevent it from sinking. They're like, she goes, "Oh, this is an ingenious idea that you've done with the shields. Where'd you get it?" He goes, "Well, I kind of got it from this ship called the Titanic back in the early 20th century." She goes, "Oh, did it work?" And he's like, "No." But I mean, they're even pushing it out into the late 24th century, you know, that people will still be talking about it.
Yeah. Well, I think we've been 15 minutes on this topic as well. And any final words on the Titanic wreckage?
Just that Melinda wants Chris to repronounce the word Lusitania.
Nope. I got it now. I got the pronunciation. I'll come back next week and I'll say it right. I got to practice it.
Yeah, Lufthansa, I go, was an airplane.
That's
And then I go, is that where they got the name?
So sometimes I'm the Joey of the group. Just gotta,
It's been 15 minutes to your point, Chef.
All right. So our three topics: Terminator, aliens, and the wreckage of the Titanic. I'm wondering if you have any idea of what the connection might be between the three of those things. And we can maybe ask our audience if they think they might know what the hidden connection is, because our show is all about the hidden connection between three seemingly random topics from 70s, 80s, 90s.
Well, I will say on behalf of our studio audience, early on, somebody mentioned, I think it was either Andy or somebody mentioned James Cameron, who is easy enough to connect to the movies. Wirehead also says James Cameron. So I can see how somebody would connect him to Terminator movie, obviously, to Aliens, obviously. And I think he visited the wreckage of the Titanic. So there's a connection there. Wirehead said it. A bunch of people have said James Cameron. Red's coming in with James Cameron, Kevin, and Doreen. Great. I know you well enough that I'm not going down that road. See, Shell has these things called red herrings.
Yeah.
That she'll just float up there like Nina's 99 red balloons. She'll put a Luft balloon up there as a red herring to get us going in that direction. So my guess is no. It's a connection. I'm guessing it's not your connection.
It is not.
I think I might have one.
I think I'm on the same boat you are, Chris.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't have gotten there without you.
It is a red herring, James Cameron. I saw that very early on. We obviously know that James Cameron directed Terminator. He directed Titanic, obviously, and he directed the Aliens, the second in the Alien series there. And that he is an avid ocean explorer. I mean, he was one of the first to comment when the Titan went down, and he's visited the bottom of the Mariana Trench solo. I mean, the man is an absolute sea explorer, and so he would be an obvious choice for that connection. However, he is not the true connection.
I will say you could also throw The Simpsons out as a connection, because they've done spoofs of Aliens, Terminator, and the Titanic. But I know that's just me being a huge Simpsons fan. And I'm like, they do some really great, and they've been turned into memes, and that the Simpsons actually used their scene to predict what happened to the Titan. People are like, Simpsons knew it before it happened.
I saw
other people said AI computer simulations, robotics as a theme from all three. Sure. We sent robots down to the wreckage, obviously crucial in both movies as well. A connection. Probably not the connection.
Not the connection. I want to hear your ideas then. So I love what people are saying over here, and I knew that people would say James Cameron. So let's hear it.
So my idea is the same as Chris's, but if it wasn't for Chris saying it early on, I wouldn't have connected all three. So I'm going to defer.
The connection I came up with was Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he was in Terminator, he was in Aliens, and on a very dark day in our country's history, James Cameron happened to be down looking at the Titanic wreckage on 9/11 and had no idea that it had happened. And 12 hours later, he comes up, and it was Bill Paxton, who happened to be with him when he was going down to see the wreckage, who let him know what had happened. And there actually is a little 20-second video clip of it, or 30-second video clip of it. So that's my connection.
Well, I'm giving you like 15/16ths of a point. Not 100%. I cannot give it to you 100% only because, but you are correct. It is Bill Paxton. Knowing that Bill, I didn't know how many people would realize that Bill Paxton did make a sort of a cameo early on in his career appearance in Terminator. He was the blue spiked punk rock guy along with the other group when he first meets the Terminator in Terminator. And of course we know him from the Aliens movie. And of course he was in Titanic. but I specifically made it the Titanic wreckage because what he had done, him and James Cameron have both visited the Titanic wreckage. It was not just James Cameron who had gone down to the bottom of the ocean. They are friends, and Bill Paxton actually went with him on several expeditions, and as a result, ended up producing another movie about the Titanic, which went largely, I don't know, it's a good movie, but do you remember the name of the movie that was narrated by Bill Paxton about the Titanic when he went down to the Titanic?
I think I've seen it.
Know the name of it?
I don't.
Ghosts of the Abyss?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's excellent. It's documentary type movie.
Documentary type, yes.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen so much on the Titanic. There's a couple of things that I fixate on. I've probably seen nearly anything made on the Titanic just because, again, it just sits with me for some reason. Same as the JFK assassination. I probably know more about that than most. Not because I necessarily believe in conspiracy theories, although both have more than their fair share, but I just find it draws me in. There's just so much to know. The characters, the people that went down on the Titanic, there's so many of them that just are larger than life. Same thing with the people involved with the assassination. There's just a lot of stories in both of those things.
I am so happy you brought that up. And I really want to say a little fun fact here about Bill Paxton. And that is that you said about the JFK assassination. Bill Paxton very famously was photographed as this very, very, very small child on the day of the JFK assassination. He has, there's a photo of him that you could see when he was small up on someone's shoulders. And that is indeed Bill Paxton.
I'm going to have to check that out. That's really interesting.
Yes. So it's funny that you mentioned that.
I bet I've seen the picture. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when I put this together, I was actually there's a lot of routes that you could take. You talked about Commando. I mean, you talked about Commando. We talked about, there's so many routes to get the Bill Paxton.
Weird Science.
Weird Science, which you mentioned Weird Science. Okay.
God, I love that.
We could have mentioned, Twister, and his son was actually in Twisters, which just came out. There was so many routes to get to him, but one of them was the famous picture of him with the JFK assassination. And I was going to make one of the connections be, if we could add a fourth connection, the dead Kennedys. And because the dead Kennedys, of course, Chris would be able to speak to that one probably pretty well, because we know Chris likes and had liked the punk rock genre. And the dead Kennedys would also subtly point to a dead Kennedy, and that he was a punk in Terminator. And I was going to head there, but then I was like, I don't have much to say about the dead Kennedys. But but anyway, yeah. So that is the connection, Chris. I tease you. I give you a full point for that, because you did mention it early on. I tried to play it off like I didn't know he was in Terminator.
For somebody who's taking lessons dealing poker, Shell, your poker face needs a little work.
Shut up. I'm only the dealer. I'm not the player. I'm not going to be on the World Series of Poker here.
The minute he goes, I don't know who knows this, but Bill, you went...
Well, I'm a huge Bill Paxton fan because, not only the stories that you hear about him was that he was like a genuinely good guy.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
And just heartbreaking when he passed away the way that he did.
Yes.
And of course, just for me, Chet was just such an iconic character from Weird Science. And Shell, because you like horror and you like psychological horror, one of his best roles is like one that people don't talk about was Frailty, which is a terrifying movie.
I never saw it.
He plays a terrifying character called Frailty. Yeah, you got to put it on your list. Frailty.
Okay, I'm doing it.
It's awesome, and you'll see him in a completely different way. And when you know the stories about how nice of a guy he was, and you see him play this character, it's like, wow, he was probably excited to play it because it's just an evil character.
He's got an entire catalog of great characters. True Lies.
True Lies was the other one I was going to connect in there, because
Apollo 13.
Apollo 13. He is one of the only, three of his, James Cameron himself has 3 movies in the National Registry of Important Movies of Films. James Cameron has 3 in there. Bill Paxton is actually in 3 of the movies that are in the National Registry. I mean, that's just how important some of what he has done is, and there were so many ways to get to both of them, to get to James Cameron or to get to Bill Paxton, because you forget, like, oh yeah, he was in that. Oh yeah, he wasn't Tom Hanks in Apollo 13.
Kevin Bacon.
What's that?
He's another Kevin Bacon. 6 Degrees of Bill Paxton.
6 Degrees of Bill Paxton.
Easy game.
I mean, Tombstone is like just one of the greatest movies of all time.
Yes.
And he's in movies with other iconic people that connect to other people. So his movies put him next to Tom Hanks, put him next to Kevin Bacon, put him next to, Tombstone alone just allows him to work with some of the other greats that are in our 80s, 90s movies. I talk about growing up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and the 80s and 90s specifically are like the 20 years where for me, music and movies just did amazing things for me. And Bill Paxton was a huge part of that.
Yeah, he absolutely was. And I highly respected him as an actor. He was only 61, I think, when he passed. And it was very sad. It was very sad. And, you mentioned about, we were talking about the real versus the CGI. Bill Paxton, I believe, started out in Hollywood as a designer of some sort. I don't know if it was costume or set or whatever it was, but I think that's how he started out in Hollywood, then made the transition over into acting.
Nice.
Good
Dude,
transition.
one of my favorite episodes yet. Loved all 3 of the topics. Loved the connection. Knew for a fact it wasn't going to fucking be James Cameron. I'm like, she is just playing with me. And I'm like, I got no idea where the hell I'm going to go until Clues finally threw out that Bill Paxton lifeboat to me, to use the terminology from Titanic. He got me off the ship and on the boat with that, so I had to give it to him because I wouldn't have got there without him.
Did you know about the Titanic wreckage, though, that he had visited the Titanic?
I knew that he had visited the Titanic because I've seen Ghost of the Abyss.
Yeah.
So I connected him with the second 2.
Yeah.
I was having a hard time connecting Paxton to the first movie, Terminator.
Until
Chris helped me.
My poker face gave it away.
Oh, your poker face. It was done. At that point, done. You overplay it. You're like,
what? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I knew about because I'd seen James Cameron interviewed where he said he was the last person on Earth to know about 9/11.
Yeah.
And it was Bill Paxton who, was on the ship waiting for him to come up from the wreckage and told him.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty, if you look up the video, it's pretty, it's sad, but it's just pretty incredible when you kind of see him go over and whisper in his ear and you see the expression from James Cameron. Yeah.
I'll have to look that up because I never saw that video.
Event. Just 9/11. That's another event where I still think a lot of untold stories. Maybe still too soon. Maybe still too fresh in people's minds. Maybe too many people that would suffer through watching their loved ones victimized on the screen from that. But at some point, I think future generations will learn about the stories of the people in the buildings that went down, much like the ship that went down, obviously with completely different circumstances, but the irony, the bravery, the people, the stories, I'm sure there's a lot that exists in the same way there.
Have you seen it? Have you been to New York to see the monument, the thing? Listen, I saw it. I have a picture of me in front of it. It is the most hauntingly simple design. It's like you're looking into infinity. It's like you're looking at this reverse of a building that was there and is no longer. It is chilling. And if anybody has the chance to see it, it is well worth their time.
Doreen, a lot of people are saying too much personal loss for now. But I honestly think future generations will because those stories are important.
Yeah.
I think those people need to be remembered and immortalized, and those stories. It would hurt too much now. We all have so many personal connections. I was driving down to New York City on 9/11. I was supposed to be there. I was filming for a game show the next day, The Weakest Link. But obviously, it's like I got up and I started. My wife's like, "Something's going on. Before you leave, you should turn the TV on. Something's going on." And obviously, that was the end of that. But there's so many people that have connections and irony and stuff.
John, it's very weird that you say that though, because I actually auditioned for The Weakest Link myself. It's
There's
funny.
a connection between us.
Years and years and years ago. But in another, James Cameron actually, not the was it the Columbia shuttle disaster?
Yep.
Because James Cameron actually wanted to start to explore space too. He wanted to go up on the ISS. He wanted to go up on the Mir, and he just missed. He turned down to hitching a ride to space on. I think it was Columbia, maybe. Yeah, and missed that too. So a lot of really, there were very deep connections here. And like you said about 9/11 and Titanic, both huge disasters with huge human losses. A very personal side too to all of them.
Yeah, that's what Hellraiser just made a really good point about. It took them how long to make the movie for Titanic, and it probably should take just as long.
I agree.
To make it for 9/11.
I agree. I think it's just too painful to show. And then, and let's be honest, every director, writers are going to take liberties. And it's just, you don't want that liberty taking with someone that you know and you love. I think it would be. I think James Cameron was smart creating Jack and Rose, two people that didn't exist. On the Titanic, and taking us on a fictional ride.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some people are like, why would he do that? I don't like that. There was enough real people he could have. No, I kind of actually like that he did that because Jack and Rose were us. He put us in the movie with two fictitious people.
Yeah.
Who were they were mixtures of a lot of different people.
Luna, thank you for saying you like my shirt.
No one said they like mine. I designed this. I actually made this shirt.
Oh, wait. Orange just said, watch the shuttle live outside of the launch pad. Wow.
That's cool.
No, not cool. You talking about the Challenger?
Oh, I thought he just said he's seen a shuttle take off. I'm like, that would have been a cool memory. I don't know if it was Challenger.
I remember the Challenger like being in my
classroom. We were talking Columbia, and Columbia was the one that was the disaster coming back, correct?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So that's why I didn't connect the two, because Columbia was took off fine. There was a heat shield problem, I think.
Yeah. Which I actually own a piece of Space Shuttle heat shield. I have to bring it out for show and tell, just like I have to bring out Gizmo for show and tell. But I actually own a piece of it that was given to me when I actually worked there, and they gifted this to me, and I'm never allowed to get rid of it. Like I'm not allowed to sell it. I'm not allowed to do. They're numbered. They're everything. It was kind of cool.
And you actually were a candidate for the Teacher in Space program.
Yes. Yep, the second draw of them. I've, Barbara Morgan was the first runner-up. I love her story because it's okay sometimes to come in second place. She has since flown, and when they reopened the teacher things, there were 100 of us, and then 3 were chosen. I got to travel all around the country, and it was pretty awesome. And Barbara Morgan, I've met her. She sang me happy birthday. I met her on my birthday, and she sang me happy birthday in front of a crowd of people. It was kind of interesting. I have pictures somewhere. I'll have to bring. Wait, you know what? We need a very special episode. Just like there's always those very special episodes. We need a very special episode.
Want us to lock you in a fridge?
About the 3, yes, like Punky Brewster in the fridge. A very special episode where we get to say some really fun little things and do some show and tell about each of the 3 of us. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong in the audience here. I think people would like to see some of that stuff.
Red, the shirt, it's Inigo Montoya.
Oh.
Princess Bride. And it
you
says,
can't
hello.
see it, but I'm growing out some facial hair. I'm thinking about being Inigo Montoya for Halloween.
Listen, really? I've never seen The Princess Bride, just like you've never seen Dirty Dancing.
That's
just
worse.
Like you've never seen, nope. Never seen
like I've never seen what?
Princess Bride.
I've seen it.
No, I haven't.
Oh, I thought you said just like you've never
just
seen
like
it.
You've never seen Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh, yeah. But I have.
No, you haven't.
Oh, you went back and watched it. Oh, you went
last week.
Parts of it.
No, I watched it this week.
Oh, you did?
In its entirety, because I got sick of you guys being able to say that.
How did you like it?
It was good.
Yeah.
I mean, I might have gotten stuck on one scene for a while, but other than that, it was good. Orange says, John Catrice, you become a celebrity at our house. Host water was not our beverage of choice. Okay, nice.
I'm so glad we're wrapping up on a happy note, because that was pretty intense, and it was good that we all had that conversation. It's important to have those conversations because those events affect all of us in different ways.
Mhm.
Some of us are removed from it in the sense that we didn't know anybody. Others who commented in the comments section did actually know people. And so I think it's good for all of us to obviously not forget, ever forget.
Never forget.
But then have those conversations. And, we like to have fun here. So, I mean, I personally would like to hear from all of you in the comments as we wrap up, because let's just think of a few fun sitcoms from the 80s and 90s that would make us laugh and just put them into the comments just to kind of give us like a way to exit on a really happy kind of fun note. I'll start with Different Strokes. Love Different Strokes. One of my favorites in terms of sitcoms, but if any of you have ones, it'll just kind of put a smile on your face. It'd be a good way to wrap up. Anybody?
I got a song stuck in my head today as I was trying to research the whole, what do I want to say about Bill Paxton? I knew I wanted him to be it. Okay. But then somehow I ended up in a black hole somewhere, and I ended up seeing a Partridge Family thing because somebody guest appeared on the Partridge. I don't know what it was, but now all I can do all day long is put the earworm in my ear, hello world, there's a song that we're singing. Come on, get happy.
Do you remember the Partridge Family 20? I don't remember the year, but the cartoon that took them into the future?
No.
You got to Google it. It's basically the Jetsons. They literally steal the animation from the Jetsons. They're in the Jetsons' little flying car. All the sound effects are the Jetsons. But there was a season of the Partridge Family projected into the future as a cartoon.
Huh.
Really?
People have mentioned Married with Children, My Two Dads, The Wonder Years. I just did a meme that did really well, showing that Fred Savage is now older than his father was when he played his dad.
That's right. I saw that. That's crazy.
Paul Reiser, My Two Dads. We mentioned Paul Reiser today.
Yeah, My Two Dads, which would be a different sitcom today. As soon as you hear My Two Dads, you wouldn't have thought that. Three's Company, Facts of Life.
How about Perfect
As
Strangers?
You Wish was my line. Great line from The Princess Bride.
Perfect Strangers.
I loved Perfect Strangers. Benji Bortakamus. Yeah.
All right, guys. Leaving on a good note, Children, Married with Children, Roseanne, the dinosaurs. Never was a big dinosaurs guy. Mama's Family, I think I saw somebody wrote. Good
Third
Times.
Rock from the Sun.
Welcome Back, Cotter.
Yes.
Oh, Third Rock from the Sun. Yeah.
Another good one. All right, guys, listen. We're over time, but not by much. It's been an amazing episode. I've had a blast. We've talked about serious things, not so serious things. Just a good way to spend an hour. I appreciate the hundreds of people that have come through the live. We do this every week with a live studio audience intentionally to be the only podcast that lets you guys be the fourth member of our team. So please join us again next week. Next week we'll be on at 5:30. If you're watching this at replay, join us Friday at 5:30 as we do another episode of the Three View Mirror podcast with Chris Clues as our host.
Yeah. Nanu Shazbutt. Somebody mentioned Mork and Mindy, so
bye, guys.
See ya.
Have a good weekend.
Be good, y'all.
Stay rad, everybody.